And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music. This is the bearded VIMTV set. This entire set, I will have a beard, and Tom has a beard. Well, it's coming in. Yeah, it's coming in. We both have red beards. Today we're going to review Okkervil River's new album in 2011, I Am Very Far. This is a band I've not been exposed to before. I've had some interest in. They are playing at our Iowa Big Music Festival that we have entitled 8035, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to seek this album out and listen to it, because it's indie rock. I'm into indie rock. Tom's into indie rock. So we're interested because we're going to see him live and we want to know what we're getting into. So, Tom, what was your experience listening to I Am Very Far? What did you think?
Well, at first you get into it, and I mean, the first listen for me on any album is really just to get a taste for the sound.
Sure.
Really just see what it's all about, what they're going for stylistically, and here, I mean, the first thing when it busts into the first track, The Valley, is you get this, huge tom beat. And
yeah, it's an anthem.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
And so a very powerful opening to the album. And it makes you wonder where the album's going to go from there. And to tell you the truth, I think it's almost like they hit the peak of energy early. And not that the rest of the album is like slow and lethargic or anything, but it's just it starts with that and then it doesn't really reach as big of a high for me.
Right.
But from there, I mean, there's lots of kind of real, almost folksy, but I almost don't want to say that.
Sure.
But lots of acoustic stuff, lots of real good sounds, but all mixed into this rock sound that is just very driving.
A lot of like it's similar to what I think that Arcade Fire does.
Yeah,
just with I think less focus on the instrumentals.
I would agree with that. I was about to say there's much more focus on the vocals.
Yes,
the vocals are really what's driving the energy behind this sound, and then you've got the instrumentals that are just kind of a backdrop to that.
And what I've been thinking, what I've been realizing, this is our 341st album review. And after listening to 341 albums and analyzing all of them and comparing them all to each other, I've kind of come to the conclusion that albums typically, not all the time, but typically are either more driven by their instruments, the instruments driving the music, or the electronic elements driving the music, or they're more driven by vocals and lyrics. As we're going to, we have a couple albums in this set, like our throwback of Montreal's Gay Parade, which is definitely lyrically driven.
Yeah.
And I think that this album is more lyrically and specifically vocally driven because the vocalist emotes so much. There is so much emotion in his vocals, and you can really tell. It adds intensity to the music. It's where the soul is, that emotion. You have to emotionally connect to that, or otherwise you're not going to get it. Now, for me, I kind of agree with Tom to the point that I just kind of I kept liking this album, and I realized that the songwriting was very of a high quality. And as I kept listening to it, and I really liked the end of the album, and I still like the end of the album, but I kept realizing that when I finished the album, I really just didn't like it as much as I felt like I should. I wasn't emotionally attached to it, and I'm trying to figure out why. I think that the one problem for me was just I didn't attach to the vocalist like I think the intention behind the music was. That's not saying that the vocals or the vocalist does a bad job. That's just saying it didn't get me. And I can't figure out why. For the life of me, Tom and I
had the same experience.
Yeah, we discussed it on the phone several times, and we were just trying to figure out why this is a well-written album. Yeah. Why don't we like this more?
That's the perfect way to put it. Because after 4 or 5 listens, I'll listen to it, and during the listening experience, I'm like, yeah, this is good. They're doing good stuff. And then by the end of it, I'm like, I don't remember anything I just heard. All the songs feel like they're like 50% longer than they actually are. And that is never a good thing. It makes the album seem like it's dragging. That first track I talked about, The Valley, I really like that. It's a track pick of mine, yet at the same time, when I'm 2.5 minutes into it, I feel like it's been playing for 4 or 4.5 minutes. It just kind of drags. And I feel like that's there pretty much throughout the entire album.
It makes an average length album seem a lot longer than it really is, which is never a good thing. And one thing that I noticed, and what I think I finally come to terms with how I haven't been able to kind of grasp this, one is the fact that this is, last set we reviewed, in fact, a couple days ago, we posted the episode for Cass McCombs' Wits End, his new album that came out this year. And Cass McCombs, it's a similar style, it's just I feel like the songwriting is so much more complex, and the instrumentation was so far more driven and superior in the mix than what this is. I don't even think that there's enough songwriting and instrumentation here to really justify that argument. This is so lyrically and vocally driven, and I think that was part of it. The other part is album structure. As Tom's noted, you got the Valley and track 3 Rider that are these big, loud, pounding anthem with percussion cadences, and I think that amount of energy right away. One, it's harder for the listener, especially a listener who listens to a ton of music like we do, to attach to it because it's not as believable. There's this concept I have that they use in literature and in composition writing called warrant. You have to have warrant assigned to your thesis or what you're writing about in order for people to understand and care what you're saying. Otherwise, they're just going to throw it away. And here, I don't feel like a warrant is ever really established. They kind of just throw you into it and it's sink or swim. You're either going to get it or you don't. Well, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attach to it because of it. Now, what I would suggest to them is had they rearranged the tracks maybe, not even really added or taken out any tracks, just arrange them in a way that kind of eases you into the anthems. Those anthems would have had more power.
Yeah.
But one thing is having the Valley there, and then Pirates with 2 S's, having that follow up to the Valley, it loses its momentum because Pirates is a much softer song, and it's much more of a groove focused song than the pounding cadence that was driving the Valley. And then Rider takes the intensity back up, and then track 4, Lay of the Last Survivor, is slower, almost a ballad, you know. And it's just we're constantly getting this intensity going, and then it slows down, and getting this intensity. It never really gets this momentum going that really gets me into the album. And that's the one thing I think that's holding this album back. Otherwise, I love a lot of the vocal parts and how they're written. Not that I'm emotionally attached to them, and I like a lot of the instrumentals. And I actually think that these guys do a really good job of writing music. It's all about the packaging, essentially, is what I'm looking for. And to me, that hurts it a little bit. I'd like to see that fixed in future Okkervil River albums. I'd like to go check out some of their past discography. This is a band that's been around for more than a decade. So to me, I'm sitting at a 69 right now.
I'm gonna go 67.
Yeah, and to us, that's where we put albums that we really like, but have something holding them back. And obviously, Tom and I both agree that this one's just hard to emotionally attach to. What do you guys think? Please leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Now, also check out Ian's Tumblr blog, vimtv.tumblr.com. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. We're going to have album riddles, and by the time you're watching this, you should be solving Tom's album riddles. So check those out, and you can make a request for music. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
And now I'm closing off as it gets colder. Can I call?